Hello, I'm Maral Zyari from Free University of Brussels, Belgium. Imagine after this conference, you take some days off to go to visit the Grand Canyon. You take a hike with your friend, but you lose each other. That's scary, right? You hike your way up to the top in hope of spotting him, but you cannot see him. You start shouting his name, and you hear him shouting your name back. But the problem is, you don't just hear his voice, you also hear its echoes. That makes it even harder to get an idea of his location. So how are you going to find him? First, let's see together, what are these echoes? These echoes are just waves that are traveling in the air, and they get reflected as they encounter an obstacle in the canyons. So what you basically want to do is to find the origin of these echoes being your friend. In my PhD, I tackled a very similar problem, but unfortunately, I didn't have time to spend my days in the Grand Canyon. Instead, I studied its electromagnetic counterpart. That is a printed circuit board, a PCB. That is a core component of basically every electronic device that we use in our daily life. Those conductive lines are responsible for the communication of the electronic components of the devices. But sometimes those lines start reflecting the waves that are responsible for the communication. And when the waves are reflected, they can disrupt this communication. So it is very important to find those origin of the reflected waves and handle them in a good way. That is the job of the designer of those PCBs. But how are they going to do so? The slow way would be to search all of the possible lines, but that's very time-consuming. So there must be a faster way. And there is, and that's where I come to the rescue. When a PCB is designed, we don't have access to all of the lines anymore. The only access we have is to the end of one of those lines that we can measure the waves that are coming out or going in. But I cannot trigger the source of the reflection I'm looking for by shouting its name. So instead, I send a tiny wave in, and I measure the reflected wave that is coming back. Then, with those measured echoes, and I apply some mathematical models to them, then I can tell the designers exactly where to look in a very short time with a very good accuracy. So if you think about the broad usage of the PCBs, you can agree with me that using our method can save a lot of time for all the engineers around the world. So if after this conference, some of you take a hike to the Grand Canyon, try not to lose each other. But if you did, try to create some echoes and think about my Grand Canyon and my method and try to locate each other using those. Thanks for your attention.